Hello, everyone. This is Sherry Greenhouse, Managing Partner of CrmXchange, and I'd like to welcome you to our session today where we are going to discuss best practices, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the solutions that you've seen today. So this is going to be a round robin, and we're going to go through, each of our presenters is going to go through one of their ideas or a couple of their ideas on each slide and then talk a little bit about their solution. So first, I'd like everybody to introduce themselves. So Abby, so we'll start with you, and we'll actually go by order of actually how you're sitting there, which was pretty good because that's how they are on the slides. So Abby, and just to have a little bit of fun, also tell us, if you were an animal, what would you like to be?
Well, thank you, Sherry. That was a fun way to start off. So yes, hi everybody. I'm with Nice Media. I'm a senior product marketing manager. And this is a really funny thing that you asked me that, because when I was a little girl, I wanted to be a starfish.
Won't even ask. So, Brian LaRoche. Oh, Brian, hold on. Oh, you're muted, Brian.
Oh,
there we go. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm in the practice of muting myself before other people do, but Abby, I don't know how I follow the starfish thing, but hi, Brian LaRoche. I am a marketing manager here at CallMiner, and I think if I had an animal to pick, it would probably be my chocolate lab, who is currently resting at the bottom of my feet right now, who truly has the life of Riley. I know we're one day past, St. Patrick's Day, but life is good for Sadie, the chocolate lab, so I wouldn't mind following her in her animal footsteps.
Okay, then. And let's see, were we able to connect to Justin? Let's see, Justin, I'm not sure if you can hear me. Justin's been having some issues connecting. So we'll come back to Justin. We're going to go to Brian Smith.
Hello, Brian Smith, VP of Product Management at First Orion. If I were an animal, probably a grizzly bear. Eat fish and sleep in all winter.
How does that go with that starfish of Abby? So, Tracy, make sure you unmute yourself. Here, let me unmute you. Go ahead, Tracy.
Thank you. Okay.
You're unmuted.
You got it. Thank you. Tracy Cash. I am the Director of Solution Design and Support for First Orion. And the animal I would most likely be I think I'll go for a sweet little bunny rabbit. I'm inspired by the movie Zootopia, for those of you who have seen that. But, you never know what a little old bunny rabbit can do going from the country to the city.
So that's interesting. We have from the same company a bunny and a bear.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to attempt that. Justin. Oh yeah, I'm glad to see you connected. Justin just had a little bit of a harrowing experience trying to get to a line that actually works. So thank you, Justin.
Totally.
So
thank you,
Sherry. Ask you to introduce yourself, and what kind of animal, if you had to be an animal, what would you be?
Totally. I'm trying to figure out what the most frantic animal I can think of right now. Probably I don't know. My answer for this one is normally a kangaroo. I'm fascinated by kangaroos, so I'll go with that. But my name is Justin Robbins, and I'm the Chief Evangelist at a company called CX Effect.
Okay, and we're going to be learning a little bit more about each of their companies on the third round. So I am actually going to turn my video off. And for those of you that have participated, that if you chat to us or ask questions or make comments, every single session, we're having a prize drawing for three prize drawings, and the more you participate, you get more points. So participate, and you have a good chance of getting those prize drawings. So my video is going off, and I'm going to be pushing your decks. Here we go.
All right, so starting with me, we've been talking a lot lately around the topic of CX and modernizing customer experiences and what does that look like. So as I'm talking through this, it's a little bit of a maturity model, sort of a step-to-step-to-step kind of a thing. So as I'm talking through this, go ahead and throw in the chat if you say, yep, we're there, or yeah, we want to be there. You know, tell me where you stand and what you think. I'd love to have that going while I'm talking. So number one, capture. So what are we talking about? Well, we're really just talking about data. So the fact of the matter is that you really need to know exactly what your customers are saying. So that's things like capturing speech in the contact center. You need to know what they're thinking, and transactional survey data can help you with things like that. And also understanding, you know, where they are. So that's another thing, is like, where is their headspace? So capturing all of this data can really actually help you glean more about your customer, because you can pull so much forward that, the context in which your customer is actually trying to communicate with you is a really big deal, especially for really being able to do customer experiences. So the next step to the whole thing is, if you would go to the next one, it's analyzing. So it's great, and it's a big enough task to get all of that data put together. Absolutely big task. But once it's done, you got to do something with it. So the analyze, this is where we're talking about really looking at all of the data, all of the omnichannel data, pulling out trends, trends in customer sentiment, topic volumes, reasons for churn. All of these things start to shape up how a customer experience is positive or negative, and the reason why. You know, is the experience bad because there's a product problem? Is the experience bad because they couldn't self-serve on the website, or there was a mobile app glitch? And then, you know, are there behavioral issues? Is there an agent that's, you know, maybe not behaving quite right, that's causing a bad experience? So then the third step in the maturity model is, well, the analyzing, that's definitely another very, very valiant effort. The next real step is to really get into the predictive, the prescriptive, using the AI to crunch through that data and really understand so that you can take action. The transforming part takes, it requires the business. The business has to focus on analytics and the results and take the action. And so what's really transformational, for lack of a better word, about using AI is that AI can start to take on this burden. AI can actually start to provide the prescriptive and predictive answers in a way that normally had to be done through a whole lot of analysis and then trying to arrive at a certain insight through a great amount of effort. This effort is being reduced in a way that makes it really powerful for businesses to be able to, number one, know exactly where an agent stands in their performance and know how to coach them to be the best they can be. Uncovering those blind spots, but like what I just said, maybe there's something wrong with self-serving on the web. Being able to uncover that means you can do something about it. And then the ability to personalize outreach, that's what I'm talking about with that contextual piece of data collection. So when you collect from all the channels, you can put together a view of the customer within the context of where that customer is, so that the conversation with the customer, whether it be by the agent or whether it be in a survey and the way we outreach to them, that is the real power. So those are my 3 steps.
Hello, I'm Brian LaRoche here, and always delighted to follow the fabulous Abby Monaco, and thrilled to be joined by other associates on this call. So we're going to talk a little bit about the best practices around customer engagement through omni-channels, because I think we're all going there. We know that customers expect personalized and integrated customer service that goes across multiple channels. That is just the current state of business today, from either a B2B, quite frankly, or a B2C standpoint. And so some of these best practices that I want to just touch on a little bit are really in support of supporting optimized engagement. So, first of all, you've got to meet the customer in the channel of their choice. And the easiest way to ensure that you're providing top-notch customer service is to meet customers where they already are. So look at your history of customer contacts, and in particular, look at where the longest response times are. It may be that you need to change your structure to place a deeper emphasis on chat rather than calls. Alternatively, you may need to scale up your social media teams and making sure that those changes come quickly upon those discoveries of customer experience. Number two, offer robust self-help with an out. You got to not only meet the customers where they are, but make sure there is an out option for them. So if they're not getting the satisfaction from their call or contact objectives, that you provide them an alternative way of getting to their answers or achieving their objectives. So this is really a no-brainer, folks, but you'd be surprised at how often, and I think we can all think about personal experiences we've had dealing with particular vendors or options where those out options are not obvious, right? And you're really struggling. And of course, for every moment that you're struggling to get out there and find an alternative way to communicate, that degree of frustration and agitation starts to become more evident in your transaction. So make sure you're giving them those out options. We really suggest that you kind of creatively find alternatives to technology silos. In other words, by a matter of necessity, and this last year has probably been a really great example of that, you've had to implement channels that may not be part of a totally integrated overall solution, right? So you may be a multi-channel offering to your customers, but they may not be all tied together, integrated. So you've got to find ways to mitigate those silos, and again, make sure that you're affording customers the opportunity to really have an integrated experience even through those channels. So to get around those channels, consider improved knowledge management, such as a rigorous dispositioning coding. This really helps to ensure that customer service teams can easily see the customer communication channels when given a reference, like their name. And this will make that process a lot smoother for them. Then I'm going to quickly go through the other ones here because in recognition of everyone else's time and consideration, address every channel and make sure you're considering process changes, instructional guidance, and agent coaching to help reduce gaps experienced by channel hopping customers. And by the way, we're seeing more and more of that take place these days. So, if you aren't prepared to help support those and address those through things like tracking disposition codes, or making sure that you have appropriate agent scripts designed for emotionally hot customers who fail to self-serve in a digital channel. That can help resolve challenges created by legacy communication channel silos. Now, make sure that you're correlating in analytics across those channels, right? So again, you should have some way of analyzing and combining all of those customer journeys, all those conversations that are taking place across those multiple channels. If you have to do that analysis outside of the platform itself, make sure that you can feed that into one common platform where you can analyze all of those integrations and really create for yourself a true customer journey view of what's happening in there. So and the other thing is, and I think we would all agree with this, it's always, right, iteration, the notion of constant improvement. So make sure that you are really keying on things like what is the average response time by each element of that platform or that channel, that you are making sure that you're sharing knowledge. So you may have disparate teams or organizations that are using these various channels. So make sure that there's an opportunity to share insights around those journeys across those channels with the various stakeholders within your organization. Being mindful of that, again, those opt-out options, make sure that there's an easy way for them to navigate, and make sure that you're attuned to the degree of outcome, right? The satisfaction response by each channel. Because again, this is the kind of feedback you need to ensure that you are meeting customers where they want to be and on the appropriate channel or channels. That's it, Sherry.
Cool. Hey, everybody. So a few years ago, I spoke to a couple thousand contact center agents as part of a piece of research. And one of the things that really jumped out to me is next to a bad boss, the number one reason why people wanted to leave their job was because they had ineffective tools and technologies. When I dove in deeper, I actually found that was affecting them on a bunch of different levels. And this tip talks about taking a step back, right? Before we think about the tools and resources conversation, before we think about processes, it's getting back to the roots of what is actually driving our employees, what is making them wanting to be a part of what we're doing. And often we talk about two words interchangeably, and those two words are satisfaction and engagement. And part of what I want to talk about here is how they're actually two very different things. See, you, me, every single one of our employees, we are constantly asking ourselves 4 questions in the work that we're doing. Number one, right? We go into a company, we go into a job, and the first question is, what do I get out of this? What does this do for me? What does it do for my career? What does it do for my knowledge or my experience? Right? That's at the most basic level. Second part, and this is something as we make the decision to go to a new job or to take on a new role, it's what can I contribute? What can I give? What's the impact that I have on a business, right? And probably for most of us, those two fundamental things are why we decide whether we take a job or not, why we stay with the company or not. But then we get to these two deeper, harder to really kind of pin down levels. And the third is, do I belong? Is this a place where I really feel like a part of things, where I really feel like I've found my people, I've found my tribe? I was in a conversation yesterday and somebody talked about their ohana, right? Have you found your ohana, right? So that's this third level. And then once you've done those things, the bigger question is, how can we grow? How can we drive this thing together? And right, the goal for you and me as leaders is how do we instill that in all of our people? And so here's what I want you to do. Here's my tip, my best practice moving forward from today is I want you to ask yourself 3 really hard questions and sit down with your team and work through these and get real answers. But number one, around this idea of satisfaction, we are satisfied when our basic expectations are met. Are you paying me a living wage? Are you giving me satisfactory benefits, right? Are my hours okay with my life? So that's one. Do you meet employees' basic needs? Second is this idea of engagement. Are employees willing to apply discretionary effort to the work that they're doing? And maybe some of you call this above and beyond or the extra mile, but are they willing to do something that's not in their job description to make life better for someone else, right? So that's question 2. And then number 3 is this idea of purpose is, do they know that they belong? Do they know that this is a place where you want to help all come together, right, to drive things forward? So before you get to the point of technology or process, right, you've got to ask yourself these 3 hard questions. And when you do that, I believe you're going to be able to make better decisions about what you're putting into place in your contact center.
Okay. Thanks for that, Justin. I took a few tidbits away from your discussion, so that's awesome. Tracy Cash from First Orion, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about things that are coming in the industry that can impact call centers and enterprises associated with getting your calls on the network and your calls being answered and the end users realizing who it is that's calling them and is it a trusted call that they should answer. So just a few best practices we wanted to talk about. For those of you who have heard of the topic of Enterprise Stir Shaken, this is absolutely new to the market as Stir Shaken within the telecommunications industry has been evolving. I will tease a bit that tomorrow we'll go a little bit more in detail, but certainly wanted to give you some best practices and things to consider when you're looking at this enterprise stir-shaken ecosystem. So one of the things that we recommend when you're trying to evaluate and prepare for becoming enterprise stir-shaken compliant is determine as a company if you qualify to obtain your own SPC token. Again, we can talk about this more in detail and what that means tomorrow, but it's certainly a very critical component that will drive you in a certain direction. So let's assume that you don't have the capability to obtain an SPC token. The other things that you're going to want to take inventory of and understand about your current processes and practices is how many different telephone number service providers do you have that you are working with to acquire numbers to make outbound calls. So very important when you start thinking about the enterprise stir-shaken ecosystem and getting your calls verified on the network. You also want to be in contact and talking with your telephone number service providers and understanding what they are considering when they are trying to help you determine and provide information about your numbers, such as your ability to use those numbers. So do you have the telephone number right of use? There's different methods coming out in the industry that will allow you to prove that you have the right to use a telephone number. Some of those that are rising to the top is one method called delegate certificates. Another method is a central registry or a telephone number database. You also want to be in contact with your service providers that handle your traffic, that get your traffic to the PSTN. How will your service providers, which is also called your originating service providers, how will they handle any information that you're sending to them in the call signaling? How will they handle the identity headers that are coming across? So two kind of legs to that stool. If you are a provider, or if you are a call center operator, or you're working with the technology where you're making outbound calls and you have a provider who gives you numbers that's different than a provider that you use for your traffic, these are the things that you want to consider. We also recommend that you register your numbers with one of the CVT, not with one, but with all of the CVT analytic providers. This will go a long way in helping and allowing those analytics companies to vet those numbers, which will help ensure and make it less likely that those calls are identified as scam. I would also recommend that as you work with those CVT analytic providers, there are websites that you can go to get those numbers registered. And there's also a free registry, which is called freecallerregistry.com, where you can interact with 3 of the major analytic providers via one website. Another tip that we would say is when you're considering enterprise stir-shaken in a deployment, you're going to want to select a proven stir-shaken vendor that can help you overcome a looming mandate, which is June 30th of 2021. And while you're thinking about that vendor, you also want to consider the future and select a solution provider that's committed to delivering a secure digital calling experience.
Okay, thank you. And now we are on round 2, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to keep it to about 2.5 minutes so we can get through this round to talk a little bit about your solutions. So Abby, you're up.
Thank you, Sherry. So I'm just going to go back to kind of where I started about the maturity model and a little bit about kind of just another way of looking at it, another way of thinking about it. So what is this model that we're talking about? So I'm just kind of going to put it into action for you. So the first piece of the model, if you can advance the slide, the first piece of the model is, as I mentioned before, personalizing feedback. So this is about no longer sending transactional surveys, yes, no type of information, more targeted to the person's conversation and to the person themselves. And that gets back to understanding that contextual information about an individual. The next piece, if you could advance it, this is about anticipating needs. And so this is, again, where I'm talking about using analytics on the omnichannel data to really understand and anticipate what's coming next. Understanding not just where customers are trending, but where each individual customer is likely to go next is a very key piece to all of this. And the next piece, if you would advance it again, this piece goes back to, actually, I really liked what Justin was talking about. Happy agents make happy customers. We hear that all the time. And so driving quality conversations using real-time guidance or AI-enabled, analytics-enabled guidance to understand your employees and to enable them and empower them is a huge piece of all of this, because happy agents make happy customers. So the final piece, if you would advance it, is really looking at optimizing experiences in that holistic view. I feel like Brian was also kind of mentioning this, how it's so important to really look at the whole thing. You got to have a whole picture, and AI really helps with that predictive and prescriptive element, where you not only are analyzing the data, you need to know where to go next. And so that's where the predictive prescriptive element comes in. So I will leave it at that.
All right. Thanks, Abby. By the way, Justin, I'm really jealous of the tie, the bow tie. You can really rock it. I can't pull that off nearly as well as you. But
Give me your address. I'll get you one.
But, you know, my high school graduation picture, I had a bow tie on, and my kids, you know, talk about that all the time. But, you know, it's, anyways, let me go on. All right. I digress. So the keys to successfully mapping your customer journey. So not all journey mapping solutions are created equal. I think, you know, every platform, every technology will have slightly different ways about that. But let me talk at that next level, and that is to ensure that whatever you do in the way of journey mapping, you really consider three really critical elements. And, you know, effective journey mapping allows organizations to really capture raw information for a better picture of the total customer journey, both at the individual level and at the collective level. So if you're looking at it from an agent experience or agent conduct standpoint, if you're looking at it from a product standpoint, if you're looking at it from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of different ways to do that. And you really need to keep in mind, as you're doing your journey mapping, think about those things. Who are the stakeholders? Who are the people that are going to be able to leverage this inside information? And is there cross-applicability about those journeys? So in other words, are there elements that are being uncovered from comprehensive journey mapping across all customer experiences that might be a reflection of some tuning or tweaking that you need to do to your chatbot programs or to your IVR? Do you need to improve your, your website? Is your self-help portal representing some challenges for certain customers with maybe perhaps certain products or certain billing formats or things of that nature? So it's really important that you are appropriately visualizing those journeys, and that you are really thinking about collaboration in mind, again, across your stakeholder communities, across all of the elements of your organization that are conceivably impacted by those journeys. And again, we've had a lot of customer stories that we've seen where customers have shared that, you know, part of it represented maybe a problem with a product delivery, but then of course it obviously represented a customer experience issue that the marketing teams wanted to be in front of. They wanted to be proactive rather than reactive to those things. So I really encourage you, make sure that when you are mapping and that you are collaborating with the other teams and sharing that information across all of those communities. And remember, the presentation, the mapping should be independent of which channel or channels you're doing these things on. It should be a reflection to see, all right, my best customer experiences happen to take place at the call level and not the chat level. Well, why is that? Is it, what does it represent in terms of the drivers for it? And so this kind of mapping, these strategies really help you to better refine your offering and how you make your offerings to your customers. And by the way, the most important element of that is in monitoring these journeys is that you actionize those insights. So whatever it is that you learn, let's make sure that you've got an action plan that you can consistently follow across your stakeholder teams to ensure whatever insights might be revealed relative to this mapping, that you can take proactive and quick steps to ensure that you can resolve or address whatever that issue might be. Okay, Sherry.
Those are some great thoughts, Brian. So I actually want to take this maybe a click above that and talking about measuring the customer experience as a whole. And one of the biggest challenges that I know I faced, at least when I was running my contact center and a lot that I speak to today, is you're often held responsible, right? As a contact center, you're often held responsible for the customer experience, but we all know, right, if we're living in this every single day, that the customer experience is so much more wide-reaching than just what happens in the contact center. So one of the things I like to walk people through is actually the 5 different areas. When you talk about what should you be measuring, what should you be looking at, what matters when it comes to the customer experience, there's 5 different things that I think it's important to have the ability to look at, the ability to understand, the ability to speak into. And so even for you thinking as the contact center, right, you have the ability to provide a view into each of these in some way, shape, or form. So number 1 is the actual product or service that the customer came to buy. 2 is the people that provided that service, right, the person or team that delivered it. 3 is the actual process of doing business with your organization. 4 is, where did it actually happen? And maybe that's your website. Maybe it's a brick and mortar location. Maybe it was over the phone, right? The location where it happened. And then lastly, how they felt during and after their experience. So confidence and reassurance. And what I want to kind of emphasize with this is there are a lot of different places that you need to look at this. And there isn't just one spot, right? There isn't just one tool. There's not just one technology. Often it's a matter of what can we do by taking things from different sources of truth, right? Because the customer experience is so wide-reaching, right? How do we pull that together and drive meaningful results from it? So again, for you as a contact center leader, I would really encourage you to think through what are the ways that in what is within your control, right? Every single day in the interactions that are coming through your business, what are the things when it comes to these five areas that you can be learning about, that you can be sharing insight to the rest of the business, and really at the end of the day, driving greater strategic impact, right? The best way you drive value in the contact center isn't just by responding to what's coming inbound, but it's understanding what those interactions actually mean and then doing something with it, towards the rest of the business.
All right, Brian Smith again here at First Orion. We're going to talk a little bit about branding, calling best practices. Tracy talked about stir shaking. We're going to talk about branding, calling right now, and then we're going to I'm hopeful that you guys will join our conversation tomorrow where we show how these kind of dovetail into one another in the future. So I know a lot of these it's going to be like preaching to the choir here. When we talk about some of these best practices, but I think it's very important just to point them out while we have the opportunity. So thank you for joining today. So when it comes down to it, making sure that you have a pre-existing relationship with the person you're calling and you're using clear, concise messaging when you deliver these calls are paramount. And, going beyond that, when you're choosing a provider to provide those solutions for you, you want to make sure they have a regional point of view, understand countries for both political as well as cultural differences on the kinds of things that should or could be displayed or said in those particular areas, and have that particular vendor to have advanced technology on recognition, vetting, and additional security features. They must have a wide range or knowledge base in mobile operating systems, right? It matters. So when it comes to Android, iOS, or Microsoft, what you're delivering, how it's contextually delivered to the user, it all matters. And you want to have a seamless experience. So I think when you're making those choices, you want to really understand and ensure that you have a technology provider that is really trying to go above and beyond what's required today and thinking towards the future. And then you want to make sure that they have a flexible delivery options, whether it be through a robust portal where you can come and do business, do phone number management, et cetera, but also externalize core endpoints through an API, because you may want to integrate those in your solutions as a contact center. So whether you're working with a CPaaS provider or a UPaaS provider, to have those kinds of things integrated. And then, just like always, you'll still have to comply with the same regulations and standards that are happening today. And maybe those things evolve. So you want to make sure you have a partner who's keeping up with those standards and those technology advancements. And so there's other technology that's coming, and it's going to be delivered over the public switch telephone network, and that's RCD, rich call data. You want to be in position, in place to take advantage of that when it happens. Again, I'm Brian at First Orion, and I really appreciate you guys had an opportunity to talk with you about our best practices.
Thank you. And now we're going to start our third and final round, where we are going to learn a little bit about all of these technologies, and all that they have is like 3 minutes each. So you're certainly not going to learn everything. You can go into the conference platform and download some product information and white papers and case studies. And also at the end of this webcast, there's a survey, and if you heard something and you think, I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, just tick off that name. So we're going to go ahead and start with Abby. I know this is hard for everyone to keep to 3 minutes, but if you can do that, it would be great. Abby?
Thank you, Sherry, for the reminder. I know we feel like we have so much to say. So mine is, ta-da, we have a solution for that. So, we've been focusing so heavily on trying to help people bring their data together, trying to give them the view of the customer so that they know how to communicate better and how to improve the customer experience. And so, ta-da! And what we're seeing with our customers who are using this solution, and Nice and Light for CX, is great. It's great stuff. They're increasing customer retention. They're increasing their customer lifetime value. The wallet share, the customers are continuing to buy. We actually have a customer that implemented a churn prediction model and started to outreach to their high-risk customers, and they would outreach, and the result was that they retained 80% of their churn risk customers, and they're continued to spend and increase their wallet share with the customer, which is really cool. We're seeing increased NPS and customer loyalty, CSAT scores, CX scores, whatever the score mechanism is of our clients. They're seeing that increasing. Improved customer service excellence goes without saying. Analytics-powered quality is, a huge lift on the agent experience, really. And outreach to high-value customers, being able to identify a high-value customer and really outreach to them in a way that they can respond has been a great result. And of course, hyper-personalization is kind of the world we're in now. We all expect, know me, serve me, talk to me the way I want to be spoken to. So a lot of that are the benefits that we're seeing. So thank you.
Thanks, Abby. So, here at CallMiner, our entire focus is around understanding and helping to empower organizations to truly comprehend the entire, the voice of the customer, and equally important, the voice of the employee. And really, the employee experience is equal to the customer experience. If you don't have a really robust balance there, you're going to find that you're heavily weighted or perhaps influenced or damaged by the total business outcomes. And so CallMiner's platform, we are strictly, by the way, an analytics engine. So we are not workforce optimization, and we're not truly we're not a telephony solution. We are really focused on truly understanding customer interactions across channels. And our platform is layered in such a way as to help facilitate that. So from our basic analytics engine that does the root cause analysis and a lot of the AI and machine learning analysis that takes place to help facilitate a true understanding of customer interactions and the ways in which to import and export that data, we are agnostic to the source. So we work with a variety of platforms. In fact, I think at last count, something like 130 different technology platforms we've integrated with. So we have a broad variety of those capabilities and the ability to capture the real essence of both the customer and the employee, and the opportunity to visualize that. So all that customer journey mapping that we're talking about is facilitated across our platform to provide secure, confidential, and a robust analysis of those customer journey elements, and then to be able to truly visualize those through our platform. So we really are looking forward to the opportunity to talk to customers. By the way, the things that I spoke about in my 2 slides previously are really part of a very interesting omni-channel white paper that we just re-released, and you can get that by visiting us in our booth. And we look forward to the opportunity for further discussion with you. Thanks for having us here, Sherry, today, as always.
Cool. So let's start with what we are not. We are not a technology company. My background is running contact center teams, and I was a researcher and a trainer for a really long time. And one of the things that I lived firsthand is how complicated, confusing, and time-consuming it could be to buy new technologies for my contact center. So my team and I decided, back in the last year, what if we provided free advisors to help contact center leaders figure out what's right for them? To help them look at their current technology stack and figure out the ways that they can make it work better, to figure out where the gaps exist and what's the right tool for where their business is today, but more importantly, where they want to go in the future. And so that's what we did. That's what CX Effect is all about. We have this mantra of simplifying how you find, buy, and optimize customer experience solutions, and that's what we focus on all day, every day. So it's really as simple as this. If you're here today and you're trying to figure out how do you make the most of your technology stack, you're trying to figure out, out of the vendors that you heard today or all of the vendors that exist, and there's a lot of them, who's right for your business, we think we can help you with that, and it's not going to cost you anything. So if you'd like to learn more, we'd love to have a conversation. You can reach out to me, you can visit our website, or just give us a call.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So we're First Orion. We're a STIR/SHAKEN provider, a call protection solution provider, as well as branded calling. So we would love to hear from you, but just to talk a little bit more about the problems that exist today. Every single customer understands this problem with scam and robocalls. Everybody. And that distrustful environment, I don't have to tell you, impacts your bottom line and getting calls answered on the phone. So, we're literally talking about tens of billions of scam calls a day. And so we know that users pick up the phone when they know who's calling and why. And so that little picture to the left where you see just the 10-digit number there, 9 out of 10 times, users just won't answer that call. Right? We provide services in network, and we have a proprietary solution that you see on the very far right called Engage that really ups the ante of showing who's calling and why. Then our Informed solution over a network allows you to know who's calling, and it gives you that 15-character display to really have that acknowledged. And so those verified secure solutions that you've been hearing about, we have it, and we can help you today. So again, we're First Orion. Yep, we're a data and technology company, but we have a flair for innovation. If you're having a hard time with getting your calls answered, we'd love to have a conversation with you. But beyond that, what does conversion look like for you? We would love to help you with that. So we hope you join our conversation tomorrow when we discuss Stir Shake and how that dovetails into brand calling.
Well, thank you. Thank you to everyone. And now we have some questions that have come in. And Brian, it looks like you have a fan in Abby that she likes the branding. I have a quick question. Does it matter, Brian, having
Thanks,
the
Brian,
name?
by the way.
Brian first Orion. I love that rhyme, by the way. So does it matter if the logo's there or just the name? It's just the name enough.
So we know that we see improvements on answer rates and conversions when you actually can display the brand, because the brand brings a sense of security. But we all know that fun, cool imagery is okay, but you need analytics and you need stir shaking compliance to really ensure that the user know who's calling and why, and that particular call is secure.
Okay. So this question came in from Mike. I keep hearing about the data, metrics, analytics associated with customer agent interactions with various tech platforms. Clearly, the performance of these tech platforms is critical in the experience. How good is modern technology in just doing the basic job and working as expected? So basically, can you do what you say it's going to do? So
Indeed. Is that for me?
It could be, you know what? Jump ball. Whoever wants to take it could take it.
I'll take first jump at it if you don't mind.
I'll take it.
Okay, go
at
ahead.
Some point too.
Well, Abby, I
want in.
Try to beat
All right,
Abby
so
to
we're
the
going to
punch.
go Brian LaRoche, Abby, Brian Smith.
Okay. So yeah, the advancements in the technology to be able to accurately analyze customer interactions and of course the agent interaction as well has grown exponentially over the last several years. The quality of the speech to text transcription, the ability to analyze not only the words that are spoken and not just word spotting, which was typically the older style of doing that, but full context, speaker separated interactions that not only measure what was said, but how it was said, when it was said, and who said it, and even over what channels have been said is remarkable today. So the ability to accurately assess that is staggering. The acoustics, the context of the word, even emoji analysis is possible today.
Abby?
Okay, so my thought on that is in order for it to work the way we say it's going to work, I think that it's very critical to also address the fact that we know data is all over the place. Data is in gobs of different formats. Some of them are not even standard formats. And so I think that, those of us that are offering these solutions, that's incumbent on us. We have to know how to handle the data in order to make it usable. So that absolutely, yes, all kinds of flexibility across all kinds of systems to make it possible, to make it happen. And then the other thing is we've got some new AI that really excites me that I would challenge you to, come learn some more about it, because we've actually been able to build AI that detects behavior. It detects very hard to pinpoint subjective behaviors and scores agents on them to help them understand how they can improve their own behaviors in order to create better customer experiences. It's pretty fascinating. So I don't want to go on and on about it. I just wanted to mention it.
And Brian with the Y.
Yes, thank you. So I think the question, if I got it right, it's really, does it work, right? And so I'd love for the opportunity for us to do an evaluation with your services and the calls that you have that are outbound today to actually put it to the test. We stand and deliver, so we'd love to do that. That opportunity to do that would be great. And so I also see another question in the chat. I don't know if it's appropriate, Sherry, to discuss it now or...
Sure, go ahead.
So the question is, with the Engage program, does it show up automatically on the customer's cell phone, or do they have to do some to save the information in their contact list for the screen pop? So the answer to that question is they don't have to real time in that call save anything to their device. It will pop all on its own. Our proprietary technology allows us to be able to deliver that real time when the call is happening.
Okay, Justin, keeping everyone honest, because you evaluate all of this. What do you think?
So the question was, do most technologies keep up to the promise in what they say they can do? And for the most part, yes, right? We're all well-intentioned people. The bigger challenge, Sherry, that is happening in most places is how you actually drive action off of it. So imagine I'm the contact center leader. My issue isn't having access to data anymore. It's what's the thing that I should be actually focusing and spending my time on? Great, you've now analyzed everything, but tell me what rises to the top. And that to me, I think, is where there's still some opportunities, and there's some cool stuff happening in terms of like machine learning and AI taking that data and then doing something meaningful with it. But that's the bigger challenge, not the technology doing what it's saying it will in terms of analyzing the data, but empowering you to drive better action. That's where the biggest gap exists today.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Justin, because in quite a few of the sessions we've done in the past, we were talking about analyzing your data, and there were always comments that, yeah, we analyzed it to death and did nothing with it.
It's the number one thing that happens, and every time we have data.
Right, you just have to follow through.
Yep.
Okay, so here's a question from Nicholas. Agree that contact centers should constantly be evolving and adapting to CX, customer experience. You must also emphasize change management with the staff who otherwise tend to be reluctant to change, and kind of goes on. So let's say you implement new technology, and there's always going to be a glitch or two when you start. And I know, Justin, you worked in a contact center. I worked in a contact center. I think Abby and Brian, I think we all started there. And the minute something doesn't work, initially it's like, forget it, not going to work. So how do you get to the point where your agents understand, your staff understands that, yeah, there's going to be a couple of glitches, but it's going to work out fine, and work with that change management and allay those fears? Raise your hand. Who wants to start first? Justin, go ahead.
So two really quick things on that. Number one is I think it's about changing our definition of change management. So often we sell change as old way bad, new way good. And we completely lose sight of what was bad about the old way that is going to be better in the new way, and what was good about the old way that will be maintained, right? Or kind of continue on in the new way. So that's part of it. The other biggest part of it is how often do we make change and then either not engage our front line in the process, or in being stakeholders and making it actually work and making it be successful. That's the biggest part of it. If we want this to be successful, it's not just only how we message it, but it's how we make our employees active participants in ensuring that it's successful.
Okay. Brian with a Y, did you want to go?
Sorry, no, I didn't have any additional.
Okay, Brian LaRoche.
Real quickly, candidly, in any program that you're going to be implementing and institutionalizing into your organization, rollout is key. A well thought out rollout plan where there's plenty of education, you've created excitement, you create the win-win value plan or proposition for your employees. It's really, really critical. If you don't really take the right steps in that, generate some excitement and whatnot, it is going to be seen as an intrusive technology rather than a beneficial technology. And remember, performance feedback is a real key to really creating the value for the agents. Let them see for themselves. Don't hide results for them. Make them part of the process and give them feedback on what they're doing.
Okay. Abby?
Quickly, I know we're up on time. I just have two things. One is, challenge your vendor to prove it before you go anywhere. And that also goes back to the idea of getting your stakeholders involved early on. Get the agents involved in the process. And the other one is we've had a really good time with bringing the agents in and all of the stakeholders and simply doing a show me, and we just say, hey, what do you think of this? If this was in front of you during the day, would you like that? And invariably, they're like, oh, that's awesome. So seeing is believing. That's all I really have to say about that.
Okay, and I'm going to ask each of you no more than 30 seconds because we're going to run a little bit over. We'll start, actually, Tracy, I'm going to start with you. Most important thing to remember.
Most important thing to remember, probably when you are selecting solution providers, you want to make sure that one, they're vetted, you can trust them, they have demonstrated capabilities, and that they are going to be a good partner to work with that you see yourself building a relationship with. Not just someone who can provide technology and create solutions that solve problems, but that is going to be a good partner with you to help you prepare for not only today, but the future.
Okay, Brian, Tracy took up some of your time. Brian with a Y.
So I'm just doubling down on what Tracy just said. And you want to make sure you have a vendor that has white glove services with a consultative approach, right? And so we can do that for you.
Perfect. Brian LaRoche.
Yeah, I certainly echo what everybody else has said here. And one other thing is do not try to boil the ocean out of the gates. In other words, look at these technologies that we're talking about here are remarkable technologies for every one of them. And they'll do tremendous things for you. But trying to be too overly ambitious in your initial rollout and try to do too many things at the same time is really going to lead yourself to some confusion and frustration. So pick a project, pick an initiative, and take a reasonable, logical approach to your rollout and deployment. And that will help to ensure a better degree of success, both initially and long term.
Abby?
I was actually thinking I wanted to give a shout out to Justin because I think that there are a lot of difficulties with, just like Brian just said, boiling the ocean and knowing how to find your way through something so amazing. It can be big, it can feel too big, and getting consultants, getting analyst teams involved that have the experience when you don't have that already is a very big power, something to consider.
So Justin, should we just leave it at what Abby said and call it a day?
I love that. All I was going to say is the only constant is change, right?
Nice, Abby.
Remember
Nice.
that. Just remember, the only constant is change. And Abby, I'll send you that $5 bill in the mail here shortly.
Okay, we're a little bit over. So thank you. Great panel, great ideas. And remember on that survey, if there's something you'd like to explore a little more, just check off the name of that company and we'll make sure they get that information. So thank you all. And just as a reminder, we do have that Stir Shaken seminar tomorrow. We thought since that's coming up, it was kind of important to do in this Connected Customer Virtual Conference. And they're going to explain a little bit more. I know it might have sounded a little confusing today for those of us on the business side, but we're going to go into it a little bit more tomorrow. So thank you all. Great session. And we hope if you have not in the audience had a chance to listen to some of these webcasts, they're recorded, they're all there for the next week or so, and that you go into the exhibit hall and download some of that content. So at this point, we will be closing this webcast and we will see you tomorrow.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.